Did you ever love a person so much you couldn't even think, and that just you're my everything, euphoria? That's all you thought about all day long in your dreams, awake or sleeping? Boy, am I glad. Well, I'm very flattered. Thank you. Well, I got one person in the audience who's crazy about me today. This'll make the hour go along. I'll tell you what is not so funny. Myra Tabak, am I pronouncing it correctly?
Tabak.
Tabak. You've not been able to let go of her ex-husband. Now, you know. Now, there's somebody in this audience who knows what that feels like.
Probably my ex-husband.
Please let there be one. He just said goodbye and that was it. You were glad you never saw him again? Come on. Tell him, Myra.
Well...
What'd you do? What are some of the crazy...
Every rotten, miserable, scheming, devious thing I could come up with.
Did you, did he have another woman?
After our relationship broke up, he did start dating the chubby blonde computer programmer with large floppy disks in his office, yes.
And you're telling jokes about this now, but this upsets you not a little bit.
Oh, I saw green.
Yeah, so what did you go and spy and all that?
Yes, I did. I cased the neighborhood. A long time ago, I was a private detective. So all of those old tricks came out. And when I got the kids to bed at night, I would drive over to her neighborhood. I would sit about 2 blocks away so I could see traffic both ways to find out when they were coming home from dates.
Right.
And as they were walking to the front door, I would drive by and lower the window and turn up the radio. And they would see me and leave immediately. Another time...
Now, you were divorced already when you were doing this?
Towards the end. It wasn't exactly final.
Uh-huh. Okay, but, all right. Okay, so that's all you did was play the loud music.
Well, somehow, one day, toothpicks found their way into the locks of his car and were broken off. And he spent hours trying to get into his car. Another time, he was behind me on the road. A policeman had just ticketed a car, and I stopped and I said, "Excuse me, officer, the man behind me is my soon-to-be ex-husband, and I fear for my life." So the officer told me, make a right, make a left, make a right. I did, and so did my ex-husband, and the red light went on. And he pulled him over and kept him there approximately an hour.
Yeah.
Another time, I was parked in front of the house, and I had 2 large containers of coffee when nature called. And I didn't want to leave my post because I didn't want to miss them coming home. And I had to go to the bathroom. And the only thing available was my 3-year-old's pumpkin-shaped lunch bucket.
So you used that?
Yes, I did.
Uh-huh. Now, Myra.
Yes.
Did you also sew his pants, or what was that?
Oh, well, when things were just about ready to break up and he was going to move out, we became very juvenile. He burned a hole in a sleeve of a very favorite dress of mine. So in retaliation, before he moved out, I very gently snipped some of the threads of his business suits, hoping his rear end would fall out at a business meeting. I did that.
Are you over this now, Myra?
No.
You really aren't?
No.
Now, you tell this with a good deal of humor, and I thank you for that. It's the audience is alive today. But please try and get under this or behind this, or however you want to say it. This is not good for a nice-looking young woman like yourself. 15 months you've been divorced.
15 months, and the pain is very real. It still is. Because I thought we were a team. Adam and Eve, Samson and Delilah, Mork and Mindy. This was my man. I mean, and it hurt. Yeah.
Is it abating at all? And are you getting...
No, I haven't dated. I don't want to date. I'll never date again. I don't want another man. He's the only man I will ever love.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you understand that feeling? You do?
Is it sick? See, we knew each other. I know his lips. I don't want to go looking.
I just want to know, are you getting any therapy to help you with this problem?
I did go to a marriage counselor, and I kept sitting there going, I resent him for what he did, and I'm not going to get over it, and That's it. I'm going to just go on the rest of my life. He's the only one that I'll ever have.
How long were you married, and how long did you go together before you
Almost
did
12
get
years.
married?
We fell in love on the
12
first
years?
date. We were married almost 12 years. Ours was love at first sight. He walked into a room. I looked up at him and said, "That's the man I'm going to marry." He called me 3 days later. I said, "What took you so long?" We went out on our first date. I said, "I want to get married, have children, live in the suburbs, and have a cleaning lady." And he got so nervous, he put the straw of his drink up his nose. It was love at first sight.
Why did you break up, or why did he break up with you after 12 years? What was the reason?
The woman with the
The
floppy
usual
disk.
thing. No, the woman with the floppy disks was not the cause of the breakup. It's the usual thing where I was stagnant for 10 years. I stayed home. I did nothing. I was a wife and mother. I didn't grow. We didn't communicate, and it just started to separate. And once it started, it was too late to stop.
You said no kids? Children?
We have 3 boys.
3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to ask that. What effect does this have on your children?
Yeah, do
Are
they
they
know
small?
you're still hooked and haven't got the Cupid's arrow out
Yes,
of your
because
head?
we did try to reconcile during this past year. He's been over for dinner and things like that. Luckily, we do have a lot of laughter in the household. I'm an actress, and that does help. So I always look at the funny side of it. And the kids, it hurts, no question about it. But we're getting through it.
I was wondering, have you ever tried any positive steps to try and get him back instead of sneaking around and the negative type things?
You know, I think once a man has tasted wine from another vineyard, he's not going to settle for Sanka.
You do?
So now I think I've really blown it now.
Yeah. It's almost over. Just hang on. We got about another 55 minutes here. Jessica, not your real name. We're happy to make sure that, you're entitled not to have your identity known. Because you are still involved. Are you still involved with this guy who's driving you crazy?
Yes.
You see each other and he says, "I love you, baby, and you're my everything"?
Not quite, but we still see each other, yes.
But you have done similarly aggressive things, have you
Oh,
not?
not as aggressive as...
Well, did you not dress all in black one
I
night?
did.
And what did you do?
Well, I decided that perhaps because this gentleman was giving me some mixed signals that he might possibly have another woman. So I, one evening, dressed up in black slacks and a black turtleneck, black gloves, and drove over to his home. And his home is not, I thought perhaps he might have a guest, and I could probably see if I drove to that area. Unfortunately, his yard is not visible from the front. So
Right.
I drove into the cemetery, which his property abuts. Turned off my lights and drove through the cemetery, wondering if there is a guard or a night watchman.
If there were, and you had these glasses and that
Oh.
wig on and a black outfit
Spooky.
at night in a cemetery,
Spooky.
this guard would be in ICU today
That's
as we
right.
speak. But you were there, must have felt foolish. I appreciate your honesty. I'm not making fun of your...
Oh.
I thank you for telling us about this because it really happened, right?
It really
a grown
did.
woman is doing this.
It was ridiculous. Oh.
You're looking back on this now saying, what is the matter
It was
with me?
ridiculous, yes. So I parked to where I estimated his home would be because there were fir trees dividing the property and you really couldn't see. And I got out of the car and tiptoed through the graveyard, through the tombstones, and arrived at a chain link fence that was about 7.5 feet high. And I am very athletic, but I haven't been practicing my fence climbing very much. So I started climbing the chain link fence and got to the top where there are all sorts of wires.
Barbed wire, yes.
And managed to get one leg over, and there I straddled this fence thinking, where do I go now?
Yeah.
But eventually got the other leg over and climbed down and realized I was in a neighbor's property. So not only was I just about to trespass on his property,
But
I was
someone else's.
also trespassing on a neighbor's.
Your heart must have been pounding like crazy.
My heart, I was shaking
Now, but
like a
let's
leaf.
understand your intention. You're going to look in this guy's window.
Right, and I'm going
And if this woman is there, what are you going to do?
my suspicions would be confirmed. So
I can hardly wait for the end of this story. What do you think she found? Nothing? Where do we get these audiences? We stepping on your story, Jessica. Go ahead.
Well, I did tiptoe, and I could see that he was. Cars were there, so he was there. But there was not a strange car. Kitchen was empty. The lights were on, but there was no one there. And then I tiptoed around to the family room, and by that time my legs were practically buckling under me, and I decided I can't go through this. No one was in the family room. So I went back to the chain link fence and did this whole procedure again, barely got into my car. I was shaking so badly.
Yeah.
And drove home. So I never did find anything else.
Now, does he know you did this?
I told him I was going to
How long ago was it you did this?
September.
Now, you pressed me at being probably somewhere around late 20s. I don't know. It's hard to tell with all this.
You're wonderful, Phil.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy. Two people crazy about me. So you're an adult woman. Now, you're not married to this man.
I'm a widow. No, I'm not married to this man.
You met him after your husband's death? And
yes.
all kinds of things happened in your head, and it was wonderful, huh?
Yes.
You didn't expect there to be another person involved in this, or the suspicion of him?
The only reason I became suspicious is that his way of treating me changed. It was sort of mixed signals. You know, he was very sweet and caring, and
suddenly distant,
and then would change, and I just could not understand it. So I just came to the conclusion it must be someone else.
Okay, Jessica, I've got to get these other stories in, but before we leave you, does he know that you know?
I told him I was coming on the show, and he said, "Why didn't I ring the doorbell?"
Oh, you mean when you came on and snuck in on him?
Yeah.
Does he still see this other woman, or is this any of our business?
I don't know whether there is another woman. I really don't.
What did he do? Say there isn't? And you believe him?
I don't know. It's one thing you never really know, do you?
Yeah, but this is kind of a miserable way to go through life, isn't it? I mean, wondering?
Well, we're all products of our experiences, and I guess that's a problem for me, trusting men.
Penny?
Yes.
Guess whose turn it is here? Have you been arrested?
No, not quite. My ex-boyfriend keeps taking me to court.
Because?
Because of harassment. He says I'm harassing him.
What do you do?
He's harassing me. He's obsessed with me. He saves tapes of my voice and he plays it to his mother. This is all true. This really is.
But what is it he alleges you? Are you unhooked from this guy?
He keeps making attempts to get back in touch with me and get back together with me and go out with me and be his lover or his friend or whatever. And then he tricks me. He invites me over with a friend or whatever, and then he'll call the police on me and say I was trespassing. Or he'll
Aren't you...
if he's in a bad mood, he'll say that I was harassing him.
But let me just understand this, Penny. Aren't you obsessed as well? Is it not fair?
He's more obsessed with me than I am with him.
But you are somewhat obsessed, is that right?
I was, but now I'm over it.
Yeah, what is some of the things you did before you got de-obsessed?
I really grew from this whole experience.
Huh?
I really grew from this whole experience, being involved with this person.
Yeah. But could you kindly share with us an example of some of the crazy things? We just had a woman try to drop her husband's pants during a board meeting, and another one climbed over a fence. Did you ever do anything like that?
Well, I got very angry one day, and I almost busted his window, but I didn't do it.
And this is over for you now, the obsession?
It's completely over. It's completely over. I'm going out with someone new, and I started, getting myself into other relationships that were
Penny,
healthy.
we have some free advice here for all of us, from a woman who ought to know. You are a member of the New York University of California at Irvine Medical School. You're Ellen McGrath, Ph.D. Is this called the fatal attraction phenomenon? Do I have this right? I mean, is there a movie now that's going to make its way into psychiatric literature?
Well, we're all living that movie, Phil.
You think so?
I think this is a great thing to talk about for Valentine's Day, because love is very confusing for all of us, and that's what we're hearing about. We're trying to hear about the differences between love and what looks like love but really isn't. What's probably more an obsession or an addiction.
And how do you know? And tell me about, are more and more of us falling hopelessly, do you know what I mean, where you just take a stake in your heart and you can't breathe because he won't call or she won't call or...
Yeah, I think they're more torch carriers than there've ever been.
Why would that be?
It's so difficult these days. With the changes that we've all had, it's very hard to figure out what love is supposed to be, and what it often feels like instead is an addiction. It's like a compulsive drive. You've got to have that person because you're not okay if you don't have that particular person. And if you don't have them, you feel panicky, and if you lose them for some reason, you actually go through withdrawal symptoms. It's very similar to if you were addicted to drinking or to food.
It's the end of the world, so to speak.
It feels totally like the end of the world.
If he doesn't want me, who will?
That's right. No one will ever have me again. It's like we go back to the way we thought about time as a child. It's child time. Remember when you didn't get what you wanted? You thought you'd never get anything else. And that was it.
Is this about a space, an emptiness within the... Show me a person who's hopelessly, euphoric, this is it, and I'll show you a person who's crazy.
Who's very needy.
Temporarily nuts.
Yes, probably. You know what I think happens is that I think all of us at various times have a missing piece inside of us. It comes from very early. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, and there's a missing piece right in the center. So you go along and you see somebody that you're sure can fill in that missing piece. So all of a sudden, you've got to have them. If you can put them here in the center, then you're okay.
Right.
You're complete, you're whole, and you'll be okay.
Shouldn't these women want their daughters not to marry a guy with a missing piece, if you know what I mean? You do know what I mean.
If they don't teach them
If you laugh at me, then I lose my confidence. Seriously, isn't that a dangerous person to get hooked up with? A person for whom you are the space that fills in the void.
That's right. I think it's the mother's duty to teach daughters not to take somebody with a missing piece. But the daughters also are very vulnerable right now. You know, we have so many changes that we have to endure. Our whole way we were told that we were women and we were supposed to be feminine has changed. So it feels real easy to feel like something's wrong or something's inadequate inside. And some man who can make you feel like a real woman is real appealing, even if he helps you resort to things like climbing cemetery fences and peeing in various places.
You know what knocks me out?
It happens to many of us.
Well, I think that all these things are so humiliating that it kind of goes back to the way we were raised and bringing ourselves up to being... thinking that we're more important and we're more valuable than just another man filling in that missing piece.
Obviously.
You know, it's just...
The people who are going to have the best relationships are the people who like themselves before it happens.
Right. We can't go on, and none of us can go on in thinking that we're totally worthless without having a man around. It's not healthy. Those things, you know, the things that you're doing are just so humiliating. I can't imagine ever doing anything like that.
I can't either, but they did. They did.
Well, many of us have done things that we would consider pretty stupid in retrospect, even if they aren't quite this dramatic. And I think it comes from that feeling that if you find somebody who's going to fill in that missing piece, you're absolutely obsessed with having to have them no matter what, and you'll pay almost any price to do it. And usually you can sacrifice your own physical and mental health in the process.
Are you there, caller? I'm glad you waited. Hi.
For the last 2 weeks, Phil, I just started seeing somebody, and I go through the same cycle every single time. I start becoming jealous and very possessive, and over the last week, I've gone to his job twice, and I don't know why I do this, and I want to know what I can do to change it.
Did you find you had this kind of anxiety with other relationships?
Yes, I did, but every time I get out of the relationship, then I always build my confidence up and say, okay, the next time I have a relationship, it's going to work out good, and I'm starting right back to square one. And last night at work, I saw him at work, and he was talking to somebody. I worked there, too, and I just became crazy with jealousy, and I wanted to rip her eyes out. I don't even know who this girl is. Could be a sister for all I know.
Right. You've never been married?
No.
And how old are you?
25.
Uh-huh. Did you think you were pretty in high school?
No.
Do you think you're pretty now?
Better.
Still not great.
Sit down here on my couch, and well, this will take a little while. We are glad you called because we've heard this before on the phone, and I assume therapists hear this all the time from patients of both sexes.
You hear it all the time. You know what? One of the things that gets confusing is many of us think that jealousy and feeling very compulsively driven toward having somebody is love. And it really isn't. A lot of times we think we must really love him because we're so jealous and we just have to have him. But that isn't love at all. That's addiction.
Yeah. But can you give her some free advice? Where does she begin? I mean, who doesn't understand how this woman feels? Her problem is she is telling us that it's chronic. It's all the time.
Sure.
So what do we do here?
It's chronic for many of us. One of the first things that you do is you start evaluating what kinds of people you're choosing in relationships, and are you
But
happier?
I think she's going to feel this no matter who she chooses.
She may, because of the way she's choosing. So she's got to take a look at who she's choosing and why. And one of the things to do with that is to get some help. Talk to other people. There's even a group that you can reach. There's a self-help clearinghouse that you can call to find out about groups in your neighborhood. It's in the public, you can get it from information. And you can find groups of people just like this who are having trouble with the people that they choose and the quality of their relationships.
I don't expect this to be the whole story for you, but and I wish we could spend more time. You're really crazy about this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, because the guy, he's the best-looking guy out of all the guys.
You want to talk to her on the phone?
He's really nice-looking. He's even told me
Hold it, I got some free advice for you.
What?
I think if you just start taking care of yourself and doing anything positive that you can do,
She's crazy about this guy.
well, if she concentrates more on herself, the jealousy, she'll be more confident and the jealousy will not be...
Is he real popular guy?
No, he's really quiet, and all the guys I've gone with, they're really quiet. It's just that I don't trust the quiet type. I just don't trust any type, really. But you know what it is? He's told me that I'm pretty. People down where I've worked told me that I'm pretty. And so I don't think I'm ugly, but it's hard for me to say, because I was very heavy at one time, for me to say, okay, I'm pretty. Then every time I get to feeling really good about myself, and I'm not going out with anybody, and I figure my next relationship's going to be different, and then this happens.
Maybe
Wait a minute.
therapy.
What?
Maybe start talking to somebody, therapy.
Yeah.
That could help.
The fact that she was heavy is germane to this, is it?
Yes, that's a lot of the thing. If you're heavy in your younger life, then
You're
you
in
have
your head heavy.
an insecurity, and you're always heavy in your head. And it's,
If we're talking about a missing piece, you're talking about experience. She was saying she felt she wasn't pretty enough in high school and she was very heavy. Okay, if somebody can make you feel that you are pretty and that you're thin enough, then that's going to be enormously powerful for you.
But it's not healthy, you're saying.
It's unhealthy because you're basing it outside of yourself. You're basing it on somebody else's opinion instead of you building it for yourself and believing it inside. Your advice, I think, was very good. You have to build that up inside of you. You're really vulnerable if you count on somebody else to tell you that you're okay.
We have a married couple, or a husband with whom we'll speak in a moment, talking about what I did for love. This is a fascinating story, a love story. This is what we're looking for at this time in our national life. And in the area of Valentine's Day, we'll be back in just a moment. Hi, I'm glad you waited. Go ahead.
I was in love and obsessed by this particular gentleman, and I put up with it for about 6 months, and I thought there could be no other person in my life ever.
Yeah.
Until he lied to me, and I caught some lies. Ladies, listen to what I did. There's nothing like three-way calling. He called me one night, and I told him I heard a beep on my end and that I had to pick up the other call. And while he was on hold, I called his wife, and I gave him enough rope to hang himself. So he had no more lies. She has the problem, and
was he at home when you called his wife?
No, he would call me from payphones. He was at a payphone about 3 miles from me, wanting to see me, and he had told me he lived with a sister and that he wasn't married.
So you connected his wife, you and him, together on the telephone?
Yeah, she didn't say anything, and I let him tell me how much.
You're applauding this?
Ladies, save your 20%. Don't mimeograph for copies. You go to the head, go to the old lady. I never heard from him since, and he's out of my life, and I'll never be reeled in by another sucker again.
Now, wait a minute. All right, we're glad you're rid of this guy.
It took a long time, and it still hurts, but, what goes around comes around.
Right. Didn't you have any compassion for him now? You're a little sorry?
No, he bit off more than what he can chew. Phil, all you have to do is set an example once, and you never have to worry about it again.
Myra, did you give him your telephone answering machine?
Oh, yes. This is a good one, and I hate to give this one up because it's been fun this year. When he moved out, I gave him custody of the phone answering machine, but I preset it on the code so when you're away from home, you can call your machine to find out who's called you.
Listen. Well, I'm glad you're free of this guy, and I assume now you're cleansed, and you're going to go out and meet some guy and live happily ever after.
Well, I hope they recognize my voice on this show and learn a lesson from this, because I'll do it again if I have to.
Well, I feel sorry for the poor guy who meets you the next time, in a way.
Why? This man had 3 kids and a wife. He was using me.
Yeah.
Was it my husband?
No. I'm glad you called. Yes. I am. I thank you, and I'm glad you're happy.
I am, definitely. So good luck, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, listen to this. This is interesting. Here is Mike Molenbrink. Mike, it says here you're married, but you don't live with your wife.
That's correct.
All right, let's start back here for a second. First of all, you had a big drama on your first date, right?
Within the first week, yes.
Yeah. At 30 minutes after the hour, you must have wondered whether you were going to get to say anything on this program. I'm sorry, but we got...
Well, it's ERA.
That's right. Tell me, what happened on that first date?
Well, my wife was legally blind when I met her, and I knew that. At the time, I was living in Idaho, working in a copper and silver mine, and I invited her up to stay in my cabin for a few days in the winter, and she agreed and came up.
Now, you'd met her before?
Just met her. My aunt introduced me to her, and we dated over the Christmas holidays and New Year's holidays.
I hope your aunt didn't know you were bringing it up to your log cabin in Idaho, did
she? suggested it, I think.
Oh.
Anyway, one morning my wife woke up and said that she couldn't feel her right arm. I assumed had just fallen asleep in the position that she'd slept in bed that night. I got ready, went to work, came home, and when I walked into the house, there was coffee and sugar and cigarette butts and ashtrays dumped. The coffee table was tipped over in the living room. I couldn't figure out what had happened. As I looked out the front door, my wife was walking up the street from the neighbor's house. Now, this town is a very small town. It's a mining town in Idaho. There was 12 people lived in this town. As a dirt road. And my wife was limping, holding her arm. Obviously something wrong. So we rushed her to the doctor. The doctor sent us to the Idaho State, Boise, Idaho, that's the capital. A neurologist examined her. Within the next 24 hours, she had a blood clot on the brain. He said, we have to operate now. So I signed her in for the surgery. I'd known this woman a week. She was on Medicare disability already because of her vision problem. So I took the Medicare card. I signed my name, Mr. Moreland, which was her maiden name at that time, because she had to have the surgery. There was no time. She recovered from the first surgery very quickly. 4 days, she was home. She had to learn to dress herself again. She had to learn to tie her shoes again. Hold up a pair of pants. She didn't know if the front was the back or the back was the front, this type of thing.
Right. So this is real daily therapy.
We went through this after, her and I did all this together after knowing each other this amount of time. We lived together for a year and then got married. We overcame the 2 brain surgeries that she had and then got married. Since that time, of course, something like this, once you have something like that, it progressively gets other things attached that come along with the cerebral spinal fluid because the brain surgery isn't correct.
It's like dominoes. You had a certain legacy. I get
other health problems follow.
Yeah.
Now, in the past 2 years, she's been diagnosed as having MS. So we live here in New York.
You're married?
Still married. And we got to the point because of the illness and the situation of living together. We didn't want to get a divorce, but it's very difficult living each day with a person who is not well, particularly with the problems that my wife has. The vision, the MS, she's in a lot of pain, takes a lot of drugs constantly. So I found myself having to live her lifestyle, which I could not do. In other words, she slept a lot. We live in a studio apartment. If you open the refrigerator door, it makes noise.
I understand.
If you open the chips or the dip, whatever, people hear you and they wake up. So having to live my life through her, we were becoming more and more unhappy, not with one another, but just with our situation. Our marriage was very bad. So we discussed an alternative that we chose to take, and I moved to the west side, and she stayed on the east side in her apartment. And it's working very well. I'm able to go out, and I don't date. I went on one date, but it was not any fun. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Just a couple of things. This is real honest. We appreciate you still love her.
Very much.
She loves you.
Yes.
You're honest to say that, you wish you had a story where, anything for you, I'll do whatever it takes, but it wasn't happening in this particular environment. So your love must somehow survive, and you hope will remain nourished, separated.
It's probably in some ways flourished, our love. It's probably gotten a little bit stronger because we've had to make some adjustments they're not easy to do when you don't live with the person that you're married to. There's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made.
You want to talk to him, don't you? Do you want to meet her? She is here. Where are you? Where is Sharon? Where are you? Oh, here you are. Well, come on up here. I'm going to get a chair for you. Let me just hang on here. This is Sharon Molenbrink, the wife about whom we speak. And we'll be back in just a moment.
To be part of the audience, write Donahue Tickets, care of NBC, New York, New York, 10112.
Well, this is something. How about this for a twist? If there's not a movie here, Sharon Molenbrink joins us. Yes, she's married to Mike. Yes, she loves Mike. No, they don't live together. Here are two people who love each other so much that he decided to move out so that the marriage wouldn't go. Well. You must have help, do you, Sharon, living at home alone? You don't live at home alone, or you do?
I do live at home alone.
Mm-hmm. Your husband tells us about your problem with your sight. I would not have guessed that. Are you legally blind? Is it?
I'm legally blind. I have been for about 18 years, since 1971.
Uh-huh. What was the year? When did you marry Mike? Or when did you go to Idaho? You remember that? The nice log cabin in Idaho?
That he lured me to?
Yeah.
I believe it was 79.
What a nice love story this is.
It looked like Winter Wonderland.
I bet it did.
Yes, it did.
You do walk with the assistance of a cane, so your MS is certainly
it's
something you don't want, but it's you're getting along.
Right. I do fine. I do very good.
Uh-huh. Now, Mike has shared with us the fact that this was a mutual decision you both came to. He moved out.
Right. Every time I made a move, it's a strange to be in a room the size of the stage and for me to go and him say, "What's wrong, honey?" It's mind-boggling, and to go into the New York Sliver kitchens and grab hold of the sink and get yourself together so you can go back out and be presentable for someone in this small apartment.
So
for today, this is a show for you, and I'm putting on a show for you. And I can pull this off for an hour, 2 hours.
Now, when you say pull it off, incidentally, I thank you for doing that. You have no obligation to put on a show for us, but I think I understand your point. You couldn't help but drive somebody else who lives with you crazy? Is this the point you're making?
Crazy, and he began to live as a sick person, as an ill person, as a person with neurological central nervous system problems, which he does not have.
As a defense against what? Responding to all the things that...
As a defense against nothing. If you're in a small room, there was no other choice. He felt guilty to go to the movies because I couldn't go to the movies. I haven't been to the movies in 18 years. It made no difference. But he couldn't deal with the guilt. Helplessness is what he felt. Helplessness.
So to strip him of this, you both decided it's better for him to get out of here. This is not a healthy place for him to live, you're saying, with you?
I basically said it to him. I was the one who said it to him.
Well, I do not speak for all this audience, but I bet I speak for some of them when I say... I don't know what I say. Huh? You want him to move back in, don't you?
Can't they get a nurse or a
Can't you get a nurse or a health aide or...
I don't need a nurse. Do I look like I need a nurse?
Well, but when you tell us that you're putting on an act and you don't go to the movies, why don't you go to the movies, for example?
I can't see the movies. Why go
Well, you don't have to see the Donahue show to enjoy it.
I can get to my TV.
In fact, some might suggest...
I enjoy your show. I can get up within a foot of my TV to watch you. The movie, I have no desire to go. I chopped my life for the past 20 years to meet my needs. Meet my needs, not meet his needs or anyone else's needs. They're my needs. And it narrows it down, narrows it down, narrows it down, narrows it down. I know exactly what I'm doing for me. It involves no one else, and I don't choose to drag anyone else into it.
You still love him?
Yes.
You miss his breathing at night?
No. I'm not that...
No.
I am not that type of person. When illness comes into your life, when something else, an alien, let's call it, comes into your life, that's what I'm talking about, narrowing it down. You become, I do not have a missing piece, as Ellen spoke about. Mike is not a missing piece to me. I am a whole person. Mike is a whole person. And if Mike can't cut it on his own, I'm sorry.
Well, did you throw him out?
It's not...
What do you mean if Mike can't cut it on his own? You're worried that he might not be able to?
I can't handle, he's bored, if he's lonely or anything else. I cannot handle that. It's not my problem. I have some other problems.
She doesn't have time to worry about me if I'm happy or not, because her whole day evolves around feeling the best she can.
I understand.
Taking
In other words,
the medication.
feeling the best she can is a full-time job for her.
That's exactly
I get
right.
it.
That's
I
24
get it.
hours a day for her.
This is for everyone, though.
Yeah, but, you know, we'd like a nice person. This sounds very patronizing. Just sort of hold up for a second. We would like nice people like you to have each other and live together, and, you know, that's the way the fantasy works for us. Makes no sense to me. How can you be in love and then he moves out?
Fantasy. Life is not...
Life dictates
Leave it
sometimes
to
that you have to
Beaver,
make some
fathers know
decisions that
best.
you don't necessarily want to do, but it's the best choice for your situation, and that's what we've done.
But Phil, you said the key word. You said fantasy. How many times do any of our relationships meet a fantasy? And sometimes when you find people who don't have that missing piece, it seems so strange that you're really puzzled about the whole relationship. You can't quite believe that it's okay.
So you admire this?
I think that they've done well. I think sometimes we can love people very well and we can't live with them.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Yes.
I'd just like to ask the couple, you live apart, okay, how much time, say in a week, do you spend together?
Well, that's usually dictated by my work schedule, but we usually see each other on an average of 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah. Let me just understand this now, Mike. You're here to say honestly that when you lived together, however much you loved her and she loved you, you got on each other's nerves, is that it?
It's not so much as we got on each other's nerves, it was... it's very frustrating to be a so-called normal, healthy person. And, for example, it's not just the movies. You can't go dancing, you can't go to the movies, you can't walk to Central Park. Any sort of extracurricular activities are gone, because for her to get 5 or 6 blocks from the house and do her shopping, that's a good day for her.
And every decision you make is wrong, no matter what.
Why can't you do those things? Why can't you do those things living with her? Why couldn't you get a bigger house, a bigger apartment?
Yes. Well, hang on a minute. Let me get someone here.
Where do you see yourselves 10 years from now?
It's a good question.
I'm not looking.
10 years from now, I plan on being
I live
married
day
to
to
Sharon.
day.
That's,
I don't think everyone understands that she has a serious illness.
That's correct.
And there is nothing like that. I mean, you have to be your whole person first. I think that's what she's
That's
saying.
right. Yeah.
And then you can go out and love. Right. And I was going to say before when we were talking to the other people is that, you know, it wasn't until I did a lot of crazy things that you people had done, and it wasn't until I knew myself is when I finally met a man that I love now. But after 3 months, he started giving me the same routine. And I said, forget it, buddy. I don't want to see you anymore.
Right. What happened?
And he married me.
What you gotta do. Yeah.
I know someone with MS, and his wife is very independent. They live in the same house, but she keeps a very independent life, and I think it depends upon you. It's not up to you. I mean, it is up to you to create your own life.
Hang on.
MS is not the big deal. I mean, my independence is the number one.
My father is legally blind, half deaf. He has a heart disease. He can't breathe in below 30 degrees.
And your mother wouldn't think of moving out.
None of us would ever think of doing something like that. We love him too much. We wouldn't want to say no to no.
Let me intervene for a second. These people are asking you to believe that the decision they made regarding their own daily welfare, while it may not be consistent with our fantasy and all those movies about coming home again, is for them the best decision and does not mean they don't love each other. They're asking us to trust them on that.
My father...
We believe you that you wouldn't move out on your father.
Mike came back it was like maybe Thursday he left, and he asked me to meet him for breakfast Saturday morning, the following Saturday morning. I did. I knew right away what he wanted. He wanted to come back. I said no. That's all. But why let him back in?
And now I'm glad she did that, because
it's letting him back into to a life of sickness. He's not a sick man.
But what I'd like to know, when you're away from her, doesn't it bother you? Do you worry about how she's doing, or?
I speak to her all daily on the phone, and I wear a pager, so if there's any problem, she can page me if she can't reach me.
I just want to know why you got married in the first place. Why did you decide to get married?
That's love, I suppose. I was...
Yeah, what?
It seems like this lady really has her act together, and these other three ladies really need to like themselves first.
And we'll be back in just a moment. I'm glad you waited. Hi.
Hi. I agree with these people totally. I asked my husband 3 years to leave. I only have one eye. I'm legally blind in that eye. The other eye is gone. And now he's just left after having an affair with one of my friends, and he's moved in with her, and there is hate, and there is anger, and we have 2 children. He's my children's father.
Now, wait a minute. You told him to leave?
I told him to leave 3 years ago so that we could try and save something, and he wouldn't. And now everything is terrible.
Yeah. What do you mean save something? Well, what's terrible? Suppose he'd have left 3 years ago and met somebody 3 years ago. How would that be more happy?
It would have left out the pain that went on for these past 3 years, and at least we could have left with a friendship instead of all this anger. Now,
let me just see if I can speak for you here, and then you'll tell me whether I'm full of baloney, all right?
Okay.
Here's what it seems to me you were saying to your husband Oh, honey, you're still a healthy man. You've got your health. You're very young, and here I am with one eye, and I am a little bit of a crip, and who likes those people, and I must not be very sexy to you. Therefore, leave me, honey. I love you so much, I'm going to let you go.
Got nothing to do with it. My husband worked 2 jobs and went to school the entire time we were married. I am totally independent.
Well, then why would you want him to leave?
Because he was having problems dealing with saying, if we have to go someplace, I have to go back and get her, or if I did come down sick, he had to handle it. And he could not handle that. He could not face it.
Mike knows about what you speak here.
He was staying because he felt obligated, not because he wanted to. He was staying out of guilt, is what I believe it sounds to me like, because I know the feelings. I had some of those same feelings myself on occasion, that I would like to leave, but I didn't want to leave because of the guilt of...
Right.
And people say, why did you, being judged, as you often are, because you do something different.
But I'm beginning to understand Sharon a little more now.
Uh-oh.
Well, the ever-sensitive, insightful,
very,
and with the antenna out, Sharon.
Independent.
Sense from you a feeling that you were maybe staying for the wrong reason, and then said to you, I don't know, I'm trying to figure this out myself. Help out here.
No.
It's not cut and dried. It's not like TV land. Really? It seems like you're looking into TV.
And a fantasy land.
So, perhaps. I don't know what type of lives people live. I mean, we only know our own lives, which is evidently totally wrong.
Wrong. By whose standard?
By many people's standards.
You feel you don't have the approval of this audience?
I don't care if I have their approval, but if I do, good.
About a 4. What? Yeah.
I want to say something to the psychologist.
I don't have a lot of time.
What if the tables were turned and the man of the family was ill? Would the woman have more compassion or to stay with him to help him out rather than the other way around?
Women sometimes stay longer, not necessarily for the best reasons, but the problem here is it's hard for us to understand that maybe staying means the relationship will break up.
Yeah.
There are
I'd just
times
like to say that they seem to be happy together, and if it works for them, that's all that counts.
And we should let them alone and be happy for them. And we'll be back in just a minute.
For a transcript of today's show, send $3 to Donahue Transcripts, 267 Broadway, New York, New York, 1007, or call 212-227-READ.
I'm glad you waited. Are you there? Hi.
Hi, Phil.
Go ahead.
Getting back to the first 3 lady that's obsessed, I have a mother exactly like them, and she'll run through my personal belongings just to see what's happening with him and who's he seeing. And
Your mother does this?
my mother does exactly what they're doing, and I think it's real sick. All 3 of them are sick.
Hang on a minute. Well, don't say that. I mean, we don't know that for sure. Yeah.
This makes it sound like only women are this obsessed. I had an old
Services
boyfriend
provided and promotional fees paid by the following.
With the kind of life expectancy you expect from a Volvo, this is the space vehicle that could transport you into the 21st century.
True Value Hardware Stores, your place for service and selection where you will find quality tools, hardware, and housewares, along with helpful service.
The Drake offers an exciting weekend in New York at a special price. The only Swiss hotel on Park Avenue. For reservations, call 800-DRAKE-NEW YORK or 212-421-0900.
I'd like to speak to the husband.
Yeah.
You say you dated, but the date didn't work out like you expected.